Comes into the final corner. Collins throws it down the inside. A block pass goes through, and he slows down Tremblay enough that Cassis will race to the line as Van Winkle goes off in the background. Torrin Collins wins in a breathless super sport race. Young makes the move on the inside, picks up the drive towards the line, and it is too close to go up, though it looks like Garan has come away victorious. What a finish!
Welcome to the Canadian Superbike Podcast.
You've seen some crazy stuff in turn 8 off the back straight there, particularly between Young and Garan, and Jordan is going to have to measure up to that standard.
Dumas tips it in, and Dumas is down. They will have to clean up that oil spill, but it comes too late for Alex Dumas. Zook doesn't look like he has enough, Colin, and Ben Young's going to bring it home for the title. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Canadian Superbike Podcast. Thank you for being here with us, as always, at Canadian Superbike Podcast is where you can find us on Instagram. In this show, little discussion off the top, we're going to go through some of the things that we saw from Goiânia, which is just fun to say. It's like the, what's the commercial right now for Reese, that nougat. I don't know if you've seen that or not, but a
lot of discussion about whether that tastes good because it's so obviously Reese, you know, but you just worry, if I buy one, am I going to have like one bite go? No, I'm going to go back to one of the 27 other varieties of Reese's that we can purchase at the store. Because I was just in the States and I think they had a whole aisle of Reese's stuff.
I bought a Reese Peanut Butter Cup protein bar from Shoppers Drug Mart the other day, and Noah told me he wanted half of it. I gave it to him. He's like, "Why isn't this Reese?" And I was like, "That's the problem, because they're doing everything and just calling it, hey, this is a Reese Peanut Butter Cup." It's like, there's only one of those. Reese's Pieces, Reese's Minis, Reese's this, Reese's Bar, Reese's, there's a billion things. But
well, there's some specific combination of elements in a Reese, and if it doesn't trigger that response the moment you have it in your mouth, you're just going to be disappointed. And Noah explained why marketing is not enough. If the tire doesn't stick, it doesn't matter how good you tell me the tire is.
Exactly. So we're going to talk a little bit about Goiânia off the top here, and then we are going to MotoGP Brazil, and then we're going to get into a couple of different interviews that we were very fortunate to get, and very appreciative of Tony Sharpless and Supersonic Road Race School giving us the space at the Toronto Motorcycle Show, the Motorcycle and Powersports Show specifically, in order to chat with Cole Alexander, rising star in the Canadian Superbike Championship. We also chatted with Jaeger Stockhill, who's doing his thing and has been fantastic coming up through Tony's program. And then, of course, we caught up with Tony herself, because we can't take over somebody's room unnecessarily for a long period of time or record with a bunch of people without making sure.
We can, but we shouldn't.
No, we should not, and we definitely wanted to talk to Tony regardless of where we were. So thank you to her for giving us the room. Again, we mentioned that in the podcast, but I'll play those for you on the back end. Right now, let's get into MotoGP Brazil. I made a couple of quick notes here just off the top. One, you get one home Grand Prix. If I have to hear them say congratulations to Frankie Morbidelli on his second, third, 85th, 922nd home Grand Prix, I don't care. You pick a country. Diogo Moreira just had a home Grand Prix, and it was cool. It's very nice to have him performing in front of the people that are his nationality. It is his country. I understand Frankie Morbidelli's mom, connection there to Brazil, all the rest. I understand that he went there last year after they were at Argentina, came over and was celebrating. I understand he has connections. That's cool. A lot of people have a lot of connections to a lot of places. You get one Grand Prix, pick a Grand Prix, that's your home Grand Prix. Thoughts?
Well, also there is somebody else who it was their home Grand Prix, and they're a world champion, which is you could argue Brazil's kind of like Canada. They don't send a lot of people to that level, and of course I remember the last time they did, and I don't know if you watched the whole coverage, but they had a really nice little tribute to Brazilians of the past, which was fun to see. And it's Brazil, to me, is another place, maybe a little bit more cars than bikes, like Australia, where there's motorsport culture is crazy strong. And if you don't pay close attention, you might miss it. But it's not just Ayrton Senna, right? I mean, Ayrton Senna casts the gigantic shadow there, and arguably the greatest of all time in four wheels. But they have a fantastic tradition. When I was growing up, one of my favorite racing car drivers was a guy named Carlos Pache, who was from there, and famously, a witch doctor told him that the arrows on his helmet were pointing in the wrong direction, and therefore were giving him bad luck. So he changed the graphics on his helmet, only had arrows pointing up, no arrows pointing down. Started winning races.
Amazing. By the way, I absolutely love the design that Moreira had on his helmet. I thought that was a really, really well done tribute. Because there's
Bikes look good too.
it's very true. Yeah, the Grassini Ducatis when they came out with that, just stunning, gorgeous. And that was a Barros tribute. They were saying, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so pretty cool. That was well done, I thought, by people going into that the event this weekend. So that's the first one. The second thing is just a combination. Jean Mir, yikes. Pecco, yikes. I just and I was almost going to do like a Honda yikes because I'm watching the sprint. I'm like, oh look, Marini's having a terrible time, and now Zarco's down, and there goes Mir. I'm like, is any Honda gonna get any data, or are we just gonna tap out on Saturday and screw ourselves for Sunday?
Well, one of the problems for Honda is I think that everybody says everything's great at Honda, right? Like in theory, they've been on pace to get a fifth or a sixth, probably, which is good. And of course, I can't remember what the gap is. How far back was Zarco? It wasn't, I mean, pardon me, Razgatlioglu, 30 seconds, right?
Yeah.
So the reigning World Superbike Championship champion was 17, seriously out of the points, seriously amongst the Yamahas who seem to struggle even more this time. But the pace is there. Like I think the spread on the grid was 1.2 seconds, and that's remarkably close. But in that environment, just the slightest things not going correctly. So, Honda are back. I'm comfortable with people saying that, but are they back to the point they're going to win? I mean, arguably Quattararo's effort was the most outstanding thing for the B level manufacturers because uh, I actually wrote it down because it's pretty remarkable. The Yamahas were right at the back in terms of top speed. Now, again, the top speed, the range is very small. So here's a shock. Where is it? I think it's Marquez. Yeah, Mark Marquez was fastest all weekend long, 348.3. And then his brother, which is a lot to do with size, right? Bezeki Agura. And the Yamahas were last, second last, fourth last, and the fastest of the Yamahas was Rins at 341. So that's only 7 kilometers per hour. It's not day and night,
Yeah.
but 7 kilometers per hour over and over and over. You're not going to be doing a lot of passing on the straightaways.
No,
Oh, and by the way, I've learned something that Razgatlioglu can't run the seat that he wants to. That it is outside the rules, and they've actually talked him into changing his handlebar and changing his seat to the one that'll help him the most in the slipstream. But he still has the worst trap speeds, which is probably strictly a function of how big he is.
yeah, it's a big dude. I'm glad that you had those numbers, Colin, because it was I mean, very apparent at various points, whether it be sprint or the actual Grand Prix, just how ridiculous it is what Quattararo was able to do in qualifying when you compared it to like there was a moment in the Grand Prix where, and again, as I was watching qualifying, I'm seeing Quattararo set that. I don't know if you were the same. I just kept going, how how is he doing
Well,
this?
and there's two things. The bike rider still counts for a lot,
Yeah,
which is one of the great things, in my opinion, about motorcycle racing as opposed to the four-wheeled world. And also, we may make fun of him for his offhand comments and his underhanded slander of his employer. And, here's a guy who conservatively is making $10 million a year, might be the highest paid guy because Marquez took a pay cut to go to the Works Ducati, but he is for sure one of the top paid motorcycle racers in the world. But when it comes time to ride the motorcycle, he reaches in there deep. And, again, when the spread in performance is so narrow, to ride your way up a few spots, like think about it, the other three Yamaha guys get to look at his data. And I guarantee you they're in their motorhome staring at the ceiling in the middle of the night going, how do I do that? Right? Like
yeah.
it's like looking at Marquez's data. You don't want to be compared to the best or one of the best. And it's funny. I'm comfortable criticizing Quattararo, but I defend that he is a fantastic person to conduct a motorcycle around a racetrack.
Yeah, so my first thought is just how, which I'm glad you got some insight on that. And then it was somewhere through the Grand Prix as I'm looking down the bar on the left-hand side, I'm going, he's where'd he go? Where is he? I can't, did I miss him? And I go back up to this. I'm like, I figured he'd be somewhere around 10 maybe. And I'm going 8, 10, 12, 4. The graphic only goes to 15. He's not, he didn't crash. I just kept going down and down. I'm
So
like,
I don't have special insight, but my bet, it was hotter than it has been. There wasn't a lot of tire data. It is a special tire at this track. I think he just overrode the tire. I think he killed the tire. And the thing is, when you kill the tire, you plummet like a rock. Like it's
yeah,
just amazing. And we've seen it more often at places like Phillip Island, where you're losing a couple of seconds a lap. And when the field's so close together, there are guys who see you, 400 meters in the distance, and then a lap later you're almost in the draft, and those people are so motivated, and they know it's Quartararo, right? And they know that their team expects them to be in front of Quartararo, that he's on a Yamaha, right? He's supposed to be at the back. So he wound up 16th, so that's just outside the points, which is heartbreaking for a guy who you can't argue he could have ridden any harder. And did he miss the setup? I don't think so. Did he cook his tires? Maybe I mean, it'd be interesting to see what he says, because whether he'll admit to that or not, but that may have been, he's trying to prove that he's that good. So he just went out and did what he could, right? And it wasn't
yeah.
wasn't the most exciting race, and unfortunately, Quattararo was one of the more exciting things that happened.
It saddens me to feel this way, but for all of the joy of watching him in qualifying and what he did on that Yamaha, then seeing him plummet down the field, like you say, after I had the context of watching his media scrum after the sprint where he said, I'm still fighting. I can prove to people that I'm still getting after it. I haven't given up. I'm still giving effort, even like, and that's true. That's very true. But it felt like
This definitely confirms it.
yes, and it feels like his trophy for the weekend was, and it's like you're looking at Marquez and he's like, I should be winning. I want to compete with these Aprilias. It's time for me to get going in this title defense. And for Yamaha, the trophy is past Marquez one time. It's like they want to stand on the podium of we passed Mark Marquez this one time early in the race, and that was our entire weekend. Put it on a poster.
Yeah, and it's funny because when that happened, you're like that. I'm like wondering if I'm hallucinating or I'm having an acid flashback or something, because they coughed up some interesting stats this weekend, and the last time, um, the winner didn't lead. It's 100 and something laps that our current leader has been winning, and that's pretty much unprecedented. And I think it was Lorenzo was the last guy who's had that long a stretch of success. And it's amazing to me that the status quo from the end of last year appears to be the same,
Mm-hmm.
but yet we've had an incredible amount of development, new motorcycles, significant changes, particularly aero and ride height and all that kind of stuff. And the net is that Marc Marquez can't seem to quite get as much out of the bike as he was previously. And I don't want to climb on the Aprilia bandwagon just yet. But if Marc Marquez can't reach into his bag of tricks at Coda, where at times he has been so much better than everybody else, it's just been incredible. If Coda doesn't yield a lot of Honda, oh my goodness, I'm throwing back. I'm thinking of Marquez all that
Yeah.
time on the Repsol bike. But if he can't dig in and really do something great in Texas, then I might start to hop on the Aprilia bandwagon. And like they've done a lot of interesting new things, and at least some of them are working.
You will be there to see it as well. You are going to be in person for Aprilia versus Mark in Texas, so that's exciting to be able to break that down. What did you think of Bez in his press conference at the beginning of the event being asked about the F duct, and he's like, "Sorry," and they're like the F like the thing that we know what you're doing with the, oh, I not sure. It's like, Marco, you weren't born yesterday. You knew this question was coming at some point. He just has no interest in answering it.
Well, the funny thing is, there are people in Europe trying to go wherever they can, and photographers don't shoot much on straightaways, but now they're trying to see, is he always remembering to get his arms flat on that panel to seal that gap? And you got to be careful too, because F duct is what it reminds us of if you
Right.
follow car racing, and that was very short lived because, and this is funny, so the racers were using their thigh to block a vent in the cockpit of a Formula One car, to change the airflow to underneath, which of course at the time was the most important thing that was going on in the car. And they determined that because you move your thigh, it was a movable aerodynamic device. Now, this is interesting. A motorcycle racer sits on top of his vehicle, not within it, and his arms are definitely movable, and the rules are the same. You can't have a movable aerodynamic device, but that's why several media sources are continuing to send this story, which almost no one believes, that this is about rider cooling. And if you look at where it is, it's pretty far out to the edges, and it's no question that these bikes get hot. And I did a little reading on this, and at the previous Grand Prix, people burned their hands because what happens is there's a thing called a heat sink, and anything in your house that gets warm probably has some kind of cooling or finning or something to try and help spread the heat out. The whole motorcycle turns into a heat sink. And what's interesting is, the tire heats the rim, the brakes heat the tire, there's a incredible amount of heat. The front of the motorcycle, you've got the tire, the rotating brake rotors, then a gigantic radiator or two, and then the exhaust system on the hot side of the engine. And that's all in front of the rider. So that it's hot, that it's uncomfortable is a given. People are actually burning themselves. And it's funny, I've had people say, what's with the mechanics in MotoGP? They always have gloves on. There's a reason.
Yeah.
The bike is that hot, right? And I've seen people touch the bike who aren't paying attention, just doing little jobs, and right away jump back because they forgot that, that frame rail, that piece of bodywork, that vent is physically very, very hot. And it's most of us at some point have ridden some motorcycle that's a little hotter than you think it should be. But this is, I think it was Pecco was saying at the first race that all the warning lights were on for most of the race about overheating. Like the whole dash had lit up telling him that you should pit now. The bike is too hot.
Crazy.
And when you race, you have this magic number that the team thinks that's as hot as you'll go. But when you're partway through a race, and you're now just above the magic number, you don't come in. You don't bail out of a decent finish because the bike's running a little hot. You do, back in the day, I raced two strokes, and overheating two strokes is quite terrifying. And as far as I know, none of these bikes are seizing or anything like that, but the bikes are incredibly physically hot.
Two things on that. One is the guy who was giving PJ Jacobsen a push out of the pit stop at Daytona.
I saw that. Yeah, he burned his hand for sure.
But I don't know if he even grabbed the exhaust or if he just grabbed somewhere that was adjacent on the frame or whatever. But to your point,
but he got his hand off in a hurry.
Oh my God! And immediately ran back and was just basically like trying to hide how much pain he was in. And I was standing right there, and I was like, "Is he okay?" It's like, anybody gonna take care of him? And he walked over and just put his hand inside like where the water bottles were with the ice and all the rest in their pit. But there's that, but then also obviously how the heat that's coming off the bike, we've seen the impact that it has on the tire pressures as well, right? And how much that's changed things. So it's unquestionable it's a point of discussion.
And let us circle back around to one of our podium guys. And by the way, when they go in the little room where they watch the video highlight right after the race, I have never seen a group of three guys with less animosity towards each other. They look like if you'd given them a beer, they wouldn't have gone out to the podium, right? They seem as happy and relaxed as three people could be. And to be fair, there was a little animosity, but it was third and fourth. And the guy in fourth, the arguable greatest racer in the history of current racing, he didn't make the podium. So if he was angry, he was doing it in his garage with his people, not on the podium. But that one of the three ended up, and I was watching him do this and I knew what was happening. He's taking all of the beverages out of the nice bowl full of ice. And why? Because he's going to Marshall Ferguson his face right into that. Did you see that? It was really good.
Yeah. The other thing that I loved about those three at the end of the race is the podium was Bez first, Martin second, and then Digi a third. Was you got to think there's somebody from MotoGP Sports Entertainment who is thinking, what do we usually have for Formula One after a race? They get into what, like the back of an Aston Martin, or they get into whatever it is, like a high end. It's luxury. It's they crammed our podium onto a golf cart in Brazil, and the best part of the visual was in the golf cart. I'm sure it was a luxury golf cart. There was plenty of seats on it. You can only fit two people with the cameras that were mounted towards. So, of course, it's going to be your one, your two. It's your factory Aprilia sitting right there with Bez and Martin. And Digia trying to have a conversation with them while leaning over the back and trying to talk to them as they're going towards the actual ceremony. I thought it was like physical comedy to the nth extent.
Oh, I thought it was back there, you Ducati scum. We're finally at the front seats here, right? Like you made the podium. good for you, because that didn't happen at the last round. But there's as they love to say every time we go to Coda, there's a new sheriff in town, and at the string he's up to, right. This is, I believe, the fourth race in a row that he's won. Crossing over through a long winter of testing where he also was typically the fastest. Yeah, he's in everybody's heads right now. It's the Aprilias have a lot to be proud about, and they seem to have become the new Ducati in that every little thing they do, we're trying to figure out what it means or if it means anything.
Am I the only person that feels poorly that I can't cheer for Jorge Martin? Like, I want to, because he's gone through all of the things of the last year and all the rest. I genuinely would like to get behind that story. Like, it's weird for me watching him have success this weekend, the redemption story, and thinking, man, I should be so excited and so happy for that guy. I think it's because of like the leaving KTM COVID stuff, the trying to bail out from Aprilia, and now he's like dancing with Aprilia and having so much fun, but he's apparently going to Yamaha, so he's going to disappear again if they don't get their development sped up significantly. So it's like I'm watching what's going on with Martin, and I want to be happy for him. I just find it very difficult to cheer for him because all of the stuff on the outside of the actual racing, it seems very disconcerting.
Well, he is a fantastic motorcycle racer. That was his first podium on an Aprilia. He has been in the wilderness for a long, long time,
Yeah.
and he was hurt multiple times. He's had multiple surgeries. He's been through a lot, particularly getting run over in Qatar. Right, that was a horrible crash and was very complicated. And he basically got left behind in the Middle East, which of course now would have been terrible,
Yeah.
because I've read some stuff about all kinds of people like just trying to figure out how to get from one place to the other, because most of the flights now, like the Middle East, has hubs, and you can't fly through those hubs. So depending on the flight you booked, you're trying to figure out how to get home, but you can't get on the plane that you were scheduled to get on, which was the straightest, easiest flight to go through. Which doesn't really have much to do with your Martine subject. My apologies,
No, it's true though.
but everybody's pretty preoccupied right now. If you live in Europe, which is where almost everybody does, it's hard to get home.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe a blessing for MotoGP unintentionally that their schedule took them to South America and then to America for this little stretch as well, right? And
Yeah,
it's,
from what I understand, most of the people are just going straight up to Texas. But
yeah.
I don't know. You come out of Brazil and you go to Texas, how much meat can you eat? That's a lot of meat in the diet.
This is true. The race being reduced as a late call, what was your perspective on that?
Well, as soon as I heard they were talking about it, first of all, they would have been talking about it a fair bit. But I knew what the distance would be, because it would be the shortest distance that you can have it, that you can achieve full points, right? And they could have force measured it and shortened it even more. But I think the big issue was that the Moto 2 guys were just cooked, right?
Yeah.
So really, it was barely more than a sprint race, and I'm okay with that. I want things to be safe, and I also wonder, were they scared at all about the track, right? Because
Yeah.
going from all of this rain to a lot of damage to the track to problems with the runoff to the sinkhole and on and on and on, and now we have the by far the hottest weather they've had the whole week they've been there. Um, there must have been a lot of concern. I would bet you they had a couple of their best people keeping an eye on that hole, that it didn't expand. Because the great thing about the sinkhole, if there is a great thing, is it wasn't on the line.
Sorry,
But there was that famous picture that looked like what we like to refer to as a G job, with 12 guys in white Dorna shirts standing around, and one guy in a hole trying to figure out what was going on up to his waist, right? So, I mean,
I
if you haven't seen that picture, it's pretty funny. It's worth seeing.
I'll include it in this part of the podcast. I'll send it out on social to make people aware of what happened here with the sinkhole. But
Yeah, I think I sent it to you, so you should have it.
I never thought when we decided to relaunch this and start going weekly on the Canadian Superbike podcast that I would get a chance in a podcast to say, Colin, your thoughts on the sinkhole.
Yeah, it's funny, because I was going back and forth in text messages with Jeff Williams, who raced CSBK for the longest time, only just recently retired and has been quite successful car racing now. And his family owns a big paving business that Jeff now runs in Kingston, which you're aware of because you grew up in Kingston and Williams Paving. You see it all over the place. They're one of the big contractors. Anyway, long, long time ago, we were at a track in rural Quebec, San Felicien, that had just repaved, and we had a couple of nationals there. The first year we went back, the track pavement, wasn't dealing brand new pavement, wasn't dealing with the very hot weather. And Jeff basically consulted, and the people who ran the track said, let's do this, this, and this. Jeff went out and looked and said, don't do any of those things.
Uh,
We followed Jeff's advice and we got through Sunday in one piece. But when you've got a lot of new pavement, there's a lot of concerns. And bizarrely, Jeff is quite knowledgeable about sinkholes. Apparently, they have them in Kingston too. And he had a truck that parked in a parking lot to start doing pavement repair, and the weight of his truck was enough to cause a sinkhole.
oof.
And then I got to learn about the cranes you have to use to lift a very, very big, heavy paving truck out of a sinkhole.
We should have brought him on for the podcast and just done like the whole thing on talking through sinkhole restoration or whatever, because there was a
Well,
lot of people
also
on social media.
Jeff is a bit of a stream of consciousness guy. He's pretty funny, so yeah, we probably should bring him on to talk about anything really. And I think he's planning to do some club motorcycle racing at Shannonville because he just likes being there and hanging out. We're coming up on the 50th anniversary and everything. So yeah, Jeff is a good guy, but he was definitely aware that things were strange in Brazil. And he said, I could be there in 6 hours, no problem.
Amazing.
You don't have to go through the Middle East to get to Brazil from here.
That's great. My favorite battle of this Grand Prix was Alex against Pedro. And where the hell did Iagura come from? That was my favorite part of the entire race, I think, in terms of wheel to wheel, outside of Digi and Mark, was like Alex going against Pedro because of the KTM stuff, with Marquez looking to go there and Pedro going on to Ducati. And then all of a sudden, Iagura just shoots up the inside, and it's like, whoa, he looks like he's in. But in all of that, it's like, okay, so we're talking Aprilia 1-2. Aguirre looks amazing. Where the hell's Raul Fernandez? Like that was a strange part of that race as well.
Well, in Iagura, I think we have to say now that he's a legitimate threat, right? He is starting to put it together on a regular basis, and yeah, as we often do, we saw some pretty impressive effort from his early on, but there always seems to be that honeymoon period goes away really fast with the new guys. They have a
Yeah.
couple of crashes. They're trying to figure out their data. They're trying to compare themselves to their teammates, and it just gets it's a long season. Now, this season just got shorter, right? We had a round canceled. So basically, everything in terms of professional motorsports in the Middle East in April, which was two Formula One races and one MotoGP race, all of that has been canceled. And I don't think any of them are going to get rescheduled. So if you're behind the eight ball, which is more of probably a Formula One challenge than a MotoGP challenge, you have a little bit of time to regroup. And of course, getting the bikes back to Europe and getting to work on them. Because one of the things when people are crashing regularly, and, for instance, Bezecchi fell 3 times at the last round on Saturday. That chomps through a lot of stuff. And, you've got people showing up from Italy, bringing stuff with them literally in their luggage, right? And including maybe frames and fairing pieces and stuff like that. But you need to get home and load the truck and get on top of your bikes because, MotoGP, the two bikes have to be identical, the rules stipulated, and you have to have a wet bike so you can switch if the weather changes. So in most racing, having two identical fast bikes is a luxury and doesn't always happen. But there, it's absolutely mandatory. You can't get through a weekend without two solid bikes. And that's why you always see after a big crash and the guy doesn't even try and start his bike, which of course the rules have changed. And we're
Yep.
starting to see that now, where the guy walks straight out, gets on a scooter, and he's heading to the garage. The next shot you see are the mechanics working on the only bike in the garage, switching all the settings over because it's probably set up for the wet. And now they need to start figuring out their tire allotment, the chassis setup, plug in the computer, and load all the right stuff for the current conditions. And particularly at early on in Brazil, when they were riding on a wet track, which, boy, you wonder, how does Razgatlioglu go so fast? Because there you have pure riding talent, right? A guy who's out there just pushing as hard as he can in really difficult conditions. And, a lot of pro racers, this is something they never want to do, is ride in public on changing track conditions, right? It's just so risky. And we saw some spectacular riding in there, 5 seconds off what a good lap time was. And by the way, I think the computers predicted 18 flats, which is about where they got down to in the dry. So their simulations were quite accurate.
It's true. What that makes me think of as well is I was having Rad Torque flashbacks listening to Neil Hodgson describe how the track's dry, but the wet patches are still present because that dip that you see on the front straight at Rad Torque, right, where it's like you come off, track's all good, and you can literally see just before the start-finish straight, I think it is in Edmonton, right, where it's like you can see a splash on the tires. It's like, well, you got the slick tires on, and the slick tires are the right call because the track's dry, but the tires aren't always fully dry. And that's
And the
difficult.
problem with any kind of standing water is it cools the tire really quickly.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So, anyways, they were up against that, and obviously it caught some guys out. Turn four was just a disaster, especially on Saturday. It seemed like whether it was through qualifying or
Well, the
the
funny
sprint.
thing is, you saw people riding it in, with good rate transfer on the front end, starting to pick up the throttle, and you can see it in the dynamics of the chassis. And every once in a while, it would just, it would just
Just
tip
go.
over. It would tuck the front end,
Yeah.
and it wasn't terrifying or anything like that. You got to remember these leathers are very expensive, and they have an airbag inside them, but the writing on them and everything is more or less screen printed,
Hmm.
so that all of that gets scraped off. It doesn't damage the suit. It just looks bad. And they can refinish those, right? Within reason, they can fix them. So when you see how beaten up the suit looks, it really doesn't reflect how bad the crash was.
It's true. Yeah, it's a good point. I do enjoy when somebody ends up though, whether it's in Parc Ferme or podium, and their leathers are destroyed. I always think that looks so badass because it's like, yeah, that guy went through hell earlier in the day and he still earned
Well,
whatever he.
did you see how our Isle of Man hero looked at the start of the Daytona 200?
Yep.
It looked like he'd been attacked with an angle grinder. I couldn't believe. I think there
Hickey.
was somebody doing leather service in the pits, and Hutchison couldn't take his suit over and say, "Hey, can you fix this at least a little bit?" Like, it
Well,
really looked rough.
there was like six people on that Peter Hickman Racing Triumph 765. So it's like he was probably just his head was underneath the bike the entire time, and then he went to the track and he probably looked down and was like, "Oh my god, this looks terrible." But man, I didn't have much of a chance to do
Bike
anything.
looked okay. I mean, they pieced it together pretty well. Now, to be fair, they had bits and pieces from two different motorcycles they could work with, so that helps.
Yes, that is true. That is true. One of my
And I
other
haven't
favorite.
heard much about Davey Todd, but
Yeah,
he had two surgeries, so hopefully he's back in England.
yeah, we'll pass along something on social. I'll look into that and see if I can find out exactly what the backstory is. But one of my other favorite parts about this weekend in Brazil is I love whenever Mark reminds you that he's Mark. And obviously, Digia makes the slightest mistake in the sprint and he pounces and he takes advantage of it and all that. My favorite thing though was turn one, his breaking point, both in the sprint and in the GP on Sunday after he got past Digia, who went wide, made a mistake on the previous lap, you can actually see when Mark wants to. It's like he knows that his limit is insert distance here, brake marker, and he's kind of living within that safe-ish zone, still pushing, but not right to the ragged edge, right? Most of the time. But as soon as he passes somebody, and he knows he needs to try and create a little bit of a gap, the helicopter shot from the Grand Prix on Sunday of him trying to brake later than Digia into turn one after he passed him, I was like, that dude's a freak.
Well, and also don't forget, when you've got by those next few corners, you need to show him that you got by him because you're just the greatest racer in history and he can't stay with you. So literally the next hard braking zone, after you've made a pass, it's hard and it's for position and you need to keep it. You go in there so crazy deep
Yeah.
because you need the guy behind you to be terrified. Like, is that what he's been doing the whole time behind me? Like, I can't do that. But what's scary to me is sometimes I think Marquez doesn't have braking markers, right? Like, he has the innate ability to figure it out. And sometimes he goes a little bit wide and you can see the bike squirming as he's trying to steer it. And I think to myself, he knew he was going to be hot and he did that on purpose. And frequently it does occasionally yield a pass, but frequently it doesn't. And sometimes they come out side by side. And we had that great 60 frame per second slow mo of the two guys, the most exciting race of the weekend, two guys leaning on each other. And a flat tracker would tell you, well, if my arm's on your bike, then we both know where the other guy is, right? And he wasn't leaning on a brake rotor or something hot. I believe he was leaning on the fenders are quite encompassing. Now, I'm pretty sure he had his forearm on Mark's fender, but nonetheless, these are two highly skilled, highly paid guys going at it like they're in the backyard on XR 100s.
In the Grand Prix on Sunday, you can see in that super slow-mo Digia as he's leaned over to the left onto Marquez's bike, you can actually see his left shoulder get punched forward. Like, it's such a great slow-mo shot that you can actually tell exactly when contact is made because the rest of it, his neck and his head, his shoulders don't move, but his shoulder gets popped and it's like, oh man, like that is
And
crazy.
doesn't he have a bad shoulder? And it's
He,
that shoulder.
yeah, exactly. And he got
Yeah.
to after the race, he was just like, yeah, my left shoulder really bothering me throughout the race. I'm like, well, that must have not
That's
felt great.
because somebody ran into it with a motorcycle.
Exactly. And
I
then
mean, that's kind of inconsiderate, really, when you see the guy. It's like, when you're slashing somebody in hockey who has a broken finger or something, right? It's
it's
just kind
true.
of dirty tricks.
Going after it. The last couple of notes that I had
By
here.
the way, I don't think Marquez is doing
No,
anything
no,
like
no. My favorite moment of the weekend would be, I think, after the sprint on Saturday, they showed a shot of Bez sitting down in his own seat back in the garage, and he realized the camera was on him, and he just looked at the camera and gave one of these that was like, "Yep, next race." I thought that was such a great shot, knowing how the weekend ended, because he saw Martin actually getting a podium. Bez is not on the podium. Wait a minute, I'm supposed to be the Aprilia guy. I've been doing all these great things, 3 straight wins, now 4 straight wins. But when the camera was on him, he's like, "It's fine. Next one. Yep, I'm good. Don't worry."
But what's interesting there is, Martin is starting to fulfill his promise. Now we have to wonder if he gets comfortable. What can he do? Can he get to where he used to be? As aggressive, because he was maybe the benchmark 2 years ago in terms of aggression. He and Pecco, fantastic battle to watch. But if it keeps going the way it's going and Bezecchi actually has the edge, Martin is going to be the reason he wins Bezecchi the championship,
Mm-hmm.
because Martin will be the person who pushes everybody back.
Yeah.
And Marc Marquez needs to start piling up some points. I mean, we talk about Pecco, his teammate, has 10 points or something, and everybody's saying he just needs to pile up some points. Almost everybody on the grid right now needs to get into the summer in Europe and consistently finish. And Jack Miller, just to pick an easy one, he
Yeah.
crashes early in the race, and you're not getting any closer to having a job next year when those sorts of things are going wrong.
No, certainly not. And my last thought here from my random Cole's notes from watching the race, which I'm thankful that Colin, you talk each of these through with me and for me, is it makes you realize how buttoned down and almost like scientific the broadcast is at all of the tracks that we typically go to. When you go to a track they haven't been to, and sure, they've got their location scouted and they've got their camera spots and they've got their game plan and they're talking in the direction, but the MotoGP Sports and Entertainment direction in this race missed Martin's double pass until they had to go back and get the replay of him going past Digia and Marquez, and also missed Digia passing Mark back with 3 laps to go into third position, and had to go backtrack and find that because they were showing the previous incident. And it just felt like they were the rhythm was off because they were trying to understand where and when they should be focusing on things. But the one where it was the double pass, arguably something that, would be like the overtake of the race because Martin jumps into second and he's gone. The first camera they picked up was Bez, and I'm like, yep, there he is. You guys don't have a better shot, huh? And then it was like 3 seconds later, and all of a sudden they come around the corner, and then they're like, let's show you that replay of the biggest pass of the entire race. I was like, when they go to tracks they don't know, it's tough.
Understand that, in the old days, if we went to a new track like we just did, they would probably have fewer cameras than they needed because, it's the first time and you're being careful and all that stuff. They had enough cameras. They were fine. So what I got to figure is there was maybe an issue. How many cameramen do they bring? They don't bring everybody. They use some of the locals, and there can be a language challenge. But the problem is that the thing you do when you're in that situation, when the battle for third or fourth is what turns out to be the focal point. You tell the guy who knows the call is to pick up the leader. You tell that guy, okay, camera one, if it's turn one, you tell him, hold the shot, let the leader go through the shot. So we've established there's the running order. Second will come through, and then the battle you're talking about. So even if we miss something and we're quickly trying to look back, and looking back on the live recording is a little more complicated than most people understand. Now, where you come from, which is true stick and ball, the history of live action, they're really good in the truck at figuring those things out and finding the shot that you want to talk about, but it's not as established with us. But all the technology exists, and the director is a guy who's traveling. Some of the camera guys are traveling, but it may have just been a communication language, fairly fundamental, simple thing, but first year on a new track, and you can only tell new people so much about how we want to shoot this, right?
Yeah.
Now, having said that, they have quite a good touring car series there that runs at that track. So I would assume there's at least a pool of guys, and this is something you're familiar with. You see our camera guys every weekend at a Canadian round, and most of them are people we've got to know over time. Some of them travel, some of them we hire at the venue.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great perspective on it because I know you're the one as well who's kind of guiding and leading that, right? In the CSBK stuff, is you're on the radio and saying, "Hey, we need to focus on this, we need to focus on that." And I just imagining if you were in that role in MotoGP that you're going, "Hey, we need to okay, we missed it. Yep, let's let's figure it out from there." It's like that's not a great feeling, but they did the best they
Well,
could.
also the problem is, did we miss it? Because your stomach says we missed it,
Mm,
but there's somebody else. Like there's a lot of people in that room. Not many of them are talking because the director is the guy, but there's a lot of people in that room all watching carefully, right? And it's funny how often it's the announcer who notices something because he's got the flow of the race in his head,
yeah.
whereas in the trailer or the monitor room or whatever, it's you're more isolated from the event, right? You don't look out a window and see the bikes go by. You're completely cut off from what's going on. So you have to kind of motivate yourself to stay engaged in the race.
All of which is to say we are incredibly spoiled, whether it be CSBK, MotoGP, World Super, all this stuff, because I think one of my favorite parts of watching the Sebring 12 hours for IMSA is just the guys in the booth going, "Is that the AO Racing 70s? Is he in front? No, is he? No, he couldn't have double stinted. Did he? Is he in third? I don't know. Did he come in for tires? We're not sure. Why is he in front of the 12? I don't know." Like the whole thing is just them on air figuring it out in real time. And it's like, well, that can't be right. No, he can't. No, no, no,
So
no.
the coverage at Sebring was really good.
Yeah, it was
And
great.
when I think about what Sebring used to be like on TV and what it's like now, it's amazing. But there's sometimes things that, and they, in my opinion, they paint themselves into a corner because they're excited, and that is good. You
Yeah.
want that in the call. But the two Penske Porsches come in together, and somebody has already predicted which one's going to come out first. And it looks like that car should, but it's not moving, and you're wondering, is this a call, is this a strategy? And there's a guy standing in the pits, you can see him on the shot they're using.
Yeah.
There's a couple of camera guys and a guy doing pit lane mic work, and meanwhile the call guys are guessing. And why don't we just say, give us a second, there's obviously a reason for this. Fred is down there. Fred is going to go ask a team manager or the driver who just got out of one of the cars or somebody. I mean, they're both Penske cars. Maybe they just decided to control the result a little bit.
I love watching IMSA, but I can't tell you how much jealousy I had at one point when the commentators, were looking through the YouTube live chat, and they had people piping in. They said, "Oh, there's, John is chiming in from the Greater Toronto area. We're excited to go to Canadian Tire Motorsport Park later in the year." And I looked in the chat. The number of people, Colin, who immediately were like, "GTA, stand up! Yeah, Toronto, we're in the house!" Like all these things. I was like, man, I would love to just like be able to see that at any point on anything motorcycle racing, where it's like you get a shout out on some forum of whatever, and all of a sudden it's just like, "We're watching from Toronto, 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 GTA, Ontario, Ontario, Ontario," all the way down through the chat. It just lit up like a wildfire, which is not surprising, but at the same time, I saw that and I was like, "Oh, that must be nice. That's great."
I think sometimes people don't understand that Ontario is a bit of a motorsports hotbed, as Quebec is too. But
Yep.
I don't live in Quebec. Excuse me.
And then the other thing that I wanted to just, before we get to the interviews here and round this thing out, is, and this is not like a criticism, so I hope nobody takes it as this, of the broadcasters and all the rest from the IMSA stuff that I was watching yesterday and we were texting back and forth and talking about, but I love when baseball broadcasters can't get out of baseball broadcaster rhythm. I think it's genuinely one of the funniest things because there's like a certain brain you have to broadcast baseball games. Everything has to start like this. Here's the 3-2 pitch just outside, and it's everything always ends like this. At the end, doesn't matter if you tune into the Vermont Lake Monsters or the Syracuse Chattanooga Chiefs or whatever it is. Like you tune into any baseball, and people have been taught through the generations. There's one way to do baseball, and it's making sure you sound like a baseball broadcaster. Don't do it any other way. I love the dude who's in the pits reporting for IMSA because I genuinely love his cadence. I think it's great. In comes the number 99. It's PJ Hyatt, and he'll get 4 tires, a splash of fuel, and down the road he goes. And then they throw it back up to the booth, and away they go. The funniest thing I thought, though, was at the end of the race, which, again, one of these sponsored segments, they just crammed in the most inconvenient time. There's like 6 minutes left in the race. 3 of the 4 classes are all within like 2 seconds of each other. and they start doing like, hey, what's the strategy of the race brought to you by Valvoline or whatever. I don't even know what it was. And they do this random sport and they threw it down to the guy in the pits, and it was a conversational segment. It was not, hey, get in, get out, do your usual thing. But his brain, after 12 hours of broadcasting, was stuck in that pit mode. And I'll have to find it, but he gave what was supposed to be just a normal human sentence where I would say, man, Ben Young on the Van Dolders home team BMW has been really good today. I like the fact they went with the medium rear. I think they've got a great opportunity here. Colin, what do you think in terms of the strategy of the race? Would Alex Dumas be more in play, or would you lean more towards David McKay? Or like, it should be conversational. They threw it down to him, and he was like, well, guys, I think that it's like he started giving the entire thing as, the Meyer Shank Racing, blah, 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 blah. He's got a great opportunity to win the strategy of the race. And I was like, man, he's stuck. It's like nobody can get him out of that mode. So,
well, you know what I like, and if this, I think, might be partly because some of the structure of how they cover it is a radio show, right?
True. Yeah, that's
people
on me.
in Europe are listening to it.
That.
But what's funny, and this has been the way for a few years, particularly at Sebring, is they bring somebody up to chat, and it's frequently from a manufacturer. And every time they're chatting while the live race is going, as soon as they start chatting, something really important happens. And again, Fred, who represents the sponsor, is telling an interesting little story about them. But meanwhile, an important development about who's going to win the race, maybe a controversy is brewing, and the poor announcer has to wait for Fred to finish his story. And at one point, early in the afternoon, there was a young woman who I'm sure is a wonderful, charming person. She's the artist who drew the poster for the event. She's talking about that and saying that, in an hour, I'm going to be down at the merchandise area and I'll be signing the poster. So, of course, that's not relevant to most of us. But another giant catastrophe, cars everywhere, bits and pieces, wings and stuff. And meanwhile, no offense to this woman who, again, it's nothing about her or her posters. And I'm sure I'd love to have a poster if I could. But it's just never fails that they're chatting about something that has no time significance when something crucial to time is occurring that everybody would love. And I mean, it's endurance racing, so there's like 12% of the people know what's going on, right? Most of the people desperately need an announcer to say what car that is, who's in it, could they have won the race, is this going to spoil everything? And particularly at Sebring, where you have people coming back from what appeared to be impossible time. Like, somebody served a 5-minute penalty for being a jerk and drove their way back up to the front of their class, right? It's amazing the things that happen at Sebring if you get lucky with the safety cars.
Motorsports are so stupid. That's why I love doing this podcast. It's just like the randomness of stuff, whether it's
for you and I to prove how stupid it is.
Just for 2 or 4 wheels, I just love the chaos of it all. Like, and again, like the rule that you're talking about of interviewing somebody and something important happening, it exists in the same time in football. When I do CFL games on TSN, there's been multiple times where it's, let's go down to Claire Hanna, who's standing alongside, I don't know, an Olympian or something. It's like, Marie-Philippe Poulin is here in Montreal. Let's go down to Kenzie Lalonde. And Kenzie's a half a question in, and then all of a sudden there's a touchdown, and they throw it back to me, dead fish, as he's going into the end zone, and I just go, touchdown, back to you, Kenzie. I'm like, what are we supposed to do with that? There's nothing good that can come out of it. But
it's too late.
Exactly, yeah. So anyways, I find that one funny, but I also I was laughing last night.
But to be fair, if there's a Ferrari sitting in the middle of the track missing half of the Ferrari, probably somebody needs to tell us how that happened.
But I was just laughing last night at like 9 o'clock because I was thinking about it. I've been watching this race like off and on throughout the day, but pretty on. I've been watching this race and I've been following along to see how people are doing. And then a pass for the win happens in one of the classes with like a half a lap to go. And it happened in the dark, and we missed it, and I didn't even know it happened until I went back to a replay, and even on the replay, it's just a bunch of lights in the dark. It's like the funniest thing to be like, I've invested 12 hours into this racing event, and the racing has been unbelievable. What a great event this has been. Also, who won and why? I have no idea. It's the funniest thing to just invest time into.
Well, all I can tell you is there's a lot of Porsches in that race. So if you say, I'm pretty sure Porsche won, you got a good shot.
Yeah, it's true.
And there's 4 classes, right?
Yeah, it's true. Anyways, that is going to do it for this part of the podcast. Fun breaking down Guayani. Thank you, as always, for the insight, Colin. I appreciate that. We will say our farewells for now, but we will leave you with our pack of interviews from the Motorcycle and Powersports show. Again, Tony Sharpless at the end here. We will throw in Cole Alexander, but I'd love to begin with an up-and-comer here in Canada, Jaeger Stockhill. Great to catch up with him earlier on this month back in Toronto.
Reigning Canadian national champion.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Canadian Motorcycle and Powersports show. We are here in Toronto at the CNE, I've been told by Colin Fraser. It is the Canadian Superbike podcast. Great to be with you, and we have a very special couple of guests with us today, as we are very welcome to be joined by Jaeger Stockhill, standing right here in front of me, all chain. Look at this. He's got all this. You took him to Spain once, and he comes back with the gold chains, and he's got everything going on. Tommy Cassis as well. You know him, of course, from the Bridgestone CSBK, hanging out with us here in
two-time national champ, one national championship runner-up in the other one, so lots of championships.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't have any to my name. Is it okay if I hang out with you guys? Is that fine? Yeah, we can talk. Jaeger, you have a lot going on. We're going to get to some of the things that you've been kind of working towards, working on, all the rest. But first and foremost, thank you for being here. I know it was a busy year for you, and I know that you are very excited about what is to come next. And today, you actually wanted to announce something that you have going on that might be of interest to some people out there.
Yeah, I got some pretty big news. I just officially launched my website called Jaeger Soccer Racing. I've never had a website before, so I'm pretty excited, and I'm excited to launch it with everybody. And if you want to check it out and subscribe to the newsletter, and my dad is going to, whatever is happening, you can check it out and see what's going on.
Absolutely, and we actually were lucky enough to get on the partners page as well, Colin. The Canadian Superbike podcast is listed on the partners page, so we're going to hang out a little bit with Jaeger over the next little while. But before we get into kind of what you have planned going into 2026 here, I just want to ask you off the top about your experience of the last year. Just what have you been working on here in 2025 going into 26? What was your last year like, just riding and building up? Because I remember I saw you back at, I think it was Lombardy 24, I want to say, when I was there covering everything that Tony's, which, by the way, I should have started off the top by saying thank you to Tony for letting us completely commandeer her entire booth with all of the beautiful backdrops and everything here. But I saw you when you were significantly shorter, less experience, all the rest.
He's almost taller than I am by this point. That's not that hard to do.
Yeah.
But you put a ton of work in, and obviously you're growing up right in front of us as a rider as well. So tell me about your last year and what it's been like.
It was pretty good, yeah. I've been riding a lot with Tomas, my coach, and training. Pretty big difference from last year to this year. I went to the World Final last year, and it was pretty big competition there. A lot of different talent. Very excited that I could represent Canada at the World Final, and yeah.
Well, I guess my question would be, with the experience of two very, very different tracks in Europe, did you draw any conclusions about what you prefer? Is there, one of the tracks, which was, of course, a secondary choice because of the flooding in Valencia, so we went to the go-kart track at Aragon, which Thomas and I joked would be a superbike track in Canada. We would literally race superbikes on their go-kart track. But it was a terrible, cold, rainy situation, but he did quite well. And then we went to Valencia, where it's a strange situation. It's a small go-kart track, not a lot of room, and it's a shrunken down version of the big track across the parking lot. But two completely different racetracks. I couldn't imagine more different racetracks. Did you like one better than the other? And of course, one of them was wet and one of them was dry.
I loved Aragon a lot more because it's just a bigger, wider track, and you could carry a lot more speed. And of course, it was raining, so in Canada we have a lot more rain than a lot of other riders in Spain. So yeah, it was very happy that. Not that it got flooded, but I'm happy that they changed tracks to Aragon because it's a beautiful track.
So here's a question: are you becoming a rainmeister? Because arguably Tremblant was your best weekend, and it was just wet right through. It's a track we've never been to. Good track, and in a way, more like Aragon, probably the most of our tracks. Are you in the state of mind where you prefer if it rain these days?
100%, yeah, because I've been training a lot in the rain, and from dirt bike experiences, I'm used to loose riding, and yeah.
So what about this year? What bikes do you intend to ride?
The 190 GP2 in the Moto Mini Canada Series and USA, and there's going to be a bike that I'm racing in Supermoto. I'm waiting to launch it on the website, but you guys will hear it soon.
Awesome. That's exciting. What's this guy meant for you? Your coach, you've been working with him and trying to kind of nail down some of his strengths and weaknesses and things that he's noticed in your riding ability. What has it been like to work with Tommy?
Amazing. He's a very, very amazing coach. He's been helping me with physical training and on the track as well. So, like, we've been last year, 2024 is when he started coaching me, and he just was making some physical programs for me, and we're doing one-on-ones, and now we are getting more.
Yeah, we're working towards building 2026 with a little bit better plan with return to Spain. That's
Nice.
the goal. So last year, one of the things you were asking Jäger, one of the things he did, him and his dad took a lot of racing on, doing supermoto and stuff up in Quebec. That gave them a lot of time on track. So that gave him the opportunity to really improve his skills. And yeah, as far as rain racing goes, I think 2024 offered a really unique opportunity for these guys that most of the season it rained for them. So when we went to Spain that year, the rainy conditions in Aragon ended up helping these guys, because you could see a lot of the British riders and the riders where you get a lot of rain kind of came to the surface, whereas most of the other guys, they're still phenomenal rain riders, but it allowed other riders to kind of come to the surface, including our Canadian riders. And 2024, getting that experience and his background with motocross and all that stuff has allowed him to do well in the rain. And once you have good results in the rain, you start gaining confidence and you become more comfortable riding in the rain, right? Whereas other riders kind of shut down, you embrace it, and that's what we've seen with Jäger over the years in the raining conditions.
That ability to build up confidence in the rain is one of the most interesting things I find in all of motorcycles. Like, to be able to do that and feel comfortable, because it's like whenever we've talked about Formula One stuff in the past, Colin, right? There's certain people.
Just to be clear, you can't fall out of a car.
No, I know, but like, as soon as you see rain coming down, you can tell that there are certain people in any style of motorcycle racing, or even just F1 and all the rest, that they feel uncomfortable as you see shots of them like sitting there. It's like head shakes and the body language is bad on the bike and the wiggles and this and that. And there are people that are engaged by it and love the challenge of it, right? So it's an amazing thing to be able to add. For you specifically, what is something that you've loved about working with Tommy? Because every young athlete, especially in this sport, needs a coach and a mentor and somebody who can help them develop.
My favorite is definitely just being able to ride with him, because he's two-time national champion. He raced in CSBK, and he's a very, very good rider to ride with and coach. He's a very good coach.
He's stalking him around the track, staring at the back tire and trying to figure it out. I also noticed you had the meal prep ready when you got here today, which is straight out of Tommy's playbook. The food was already ready to go. So that makes
so here's the question, Tom. You teach the fast school, so you teach adults on larger motorcycles, and then you do more specific coaching because it's racing focused with the smaller motorcycles. How much do you have to change your mindset from talking to grown-ups to adolescents?
Yeah, so I've gotten the neat opportunity of working both with the Supersonic Rotary School and the Fast Riding School.
And look at the media training, right? He went back and mentioned the names of both of the schools. That's really good. Yeah.
So it's given me a really unique opportunity in working with all sorts of general populations. At road racing school with Tony, we get from the kids to the adults, and then with Fast we only get adults. So I get the opportunity to practice communicating with the different general population, different ages. But yeah, it's very interesting because especially when I'm working with the racers compared to just an adult that's just coming to kind of have fun with it and enjoy themselves. I approach it in an aspect that I want to have the adult learn some of the racing components, but really just get the fundamentals down and enjoy themselves. With the racers, that's how we start. But then once we've tailored the fundamentals and we know that we want to focus in the racing side of things, I demand a lot more from the young kids as far as racing.
But isn't the flip side that with somebody like Jäger who's serious, then you can give them a little bit of what really goes on in your head when you're racing seriously? Because most of the time, a regular street rider who's at Shannonville trying to have fun on a GSXR, you don't actually want to show them a lot of what real racing is like, because it would be frightening, right? Whereas that's exactly where he's headed. We're trying to get him ready to have to deal with those sorts of problems, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And that's one of the things we've been working a lot with when we've gone to Spain, is that mental side of the sport, which makes such a critical difference at the high level, right? We get to a point where, at the competitive level, a lot of riders, they get to the point where the skill is there, and now it becomes a mental game. How you're going to manage, race strategy, your emotions, and that sort of stuff. And where it's handy for a young rider to have an experienced rider with them is the relatability component, right? I've been through some of the stuff that he's been through, and the goal is to try to limit him having to go through the trial and error route, but learn from my experiences and the errors I made, so that he doesn't commit them in the same amount of errors, right? Just limit the amount of errors and get the experience a lot quicker that way. So yeah, in that way, I'm able to share a lot of what I've gone through my career, and that should hopefully help them through their progress.
So, Jaeger, from your point of view, when you go over and you start riding with the Europeans, and you do track days in schools and as well as race in the World Championships, is it an adjustment? Are the guys over there that much more aggressive? Like, we hear the stories, and Frank and I were on the television coverage on Rev talking about what it's going to be like when you go to Europe. Is it that bad when you go?
Yeah, it is very different because they're all so close. They're like drifting everywhere. They brake later. They're so much faster. And the big change from Canada to Spain is they're all just so close. All the training that I was in, like in the parking lot with RS Academy and stuff, everybody was just touching each other, battling with each other, like that. So that's definitely a big change.
Well, it is a joke in stock car racing that Rubin's racing,
right.
But Ovale, rubbing at the level he rides at, rubbing is racing,
yeah.
right? Like the guys, and part of it is just to let the guy know you're there. People are passing at the apex of corners, which doesn't happen much with what you do unless it's you and Torrin Collins.
But I would also say that too. But I would also say that, like, watching Moto Mini, the World Final this past year, everything happens so fast. That was what jumped out to me, right? Is that, like, when you come off of a corner in Super Sport here in Canada, it's like you come off and you might have to set yourself up for it, but you got a second or two to get there, and you're kind of maneuvering around the bike. When I'm watching you guys, the World Final, it's like the second that you come off of a corner, you're already, like, you're hammering it and then you're down it. You're hammering it, you're down it. The amount of processing speed required, not just in those tracks, but for people that are racing that close together, that must have been a bit of, not a wake-up call, but just a massive adjustment for you in real time, right? Like, it's because I know for myself, and I always apply things back to my days of being a washed-up football player, but if I had to take what I was doing and the thought process and condense it into, I don't know, a smaller field and quicker reaction time, and now people are blitzing every 3 seconds instead of once every 7 seconds, whatever it might be, the ability to try and adjust to that is a major challenge.
Yeah.
We were having a conversation about, in the old days, you'd start every season with a brand new motorcycle, and the manufacturers wanted you to ride the new bikes, but the problem is you have no setup and you don't know the bike. But the worst situation is a track you don't know and a bike you don't know. And that's exactly what he's in the middle of, right? This is a bike like the one I'm used to, but it's not my bike, right? It came out of a pool of motorcycles, so there may be some things to get used to, and we don't know the racetrack, right? That's a lot of unknowns, and the people around you are psychotic, right? It's a lot to adjust to, and you can talk about it all day long, but when you're first driving out the pit lane for that first session, there's, as good as Thomas is, he's not sitting on the back of the bike telling you you're going to be okay. He's in your head, right? But it's a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest things that I try to work with them, and I encourage them and I give them as much of my advice as I can, but at the end of the day, they're the ones on the motorcycle and they're the ones out on track, right? So really, I'm there to try to facilitate things and make the process easier for them and act as a support system. But yeah, when it comes to, the lights out and you're on track, you're there on your own. And unlike Formula One, we don't have a speaker system to communicate, right?
I was going to ask you as well, like, what is more stressful to you? Because I don't know if you're a control freak or if you are, you want to work. But I would think that the stress of riding is one thing. You're going down the back straight at full sport or whatever, and it's like, but you are hands on the throttle, you've got control of the moment. Is it more stressful after coaching him to see him racing and be like, like, I imagine with every corner you're like,
what? It is, and it's funny because now I see this kind of stress that my parents go through.
Yeah.
Right? In the sense of now I got someone that I care about and I'm trying to help do better and I want to see do better. But now I'm on the other side of things, right? When you're on the motorcycle, you're so in tune, so in the zone of doing your own thing, you get into a rhythm and you try to stay in that comfortable rhythm, breathing and just locked in onto what's your next step. So now that I'm watching him, there's so many more thoughts going around. And so, yeah, it's a lot more stressful off the sidelines for sure.
Interesting. The last thing I want to ask you here, Jaeger, it's been great to catch up with you, is just the anybody you want to give a shout out to. Obviously, when you're at this level of racing in a younger age, there's a lot of support that you need in order to be able to make it a reality. So who's on the front of your mind when it comes to that?
Yeah, I would like to thank 88 Moto, 613 Motorsports, Damien Pereira,
Mom and Dad.
I'm suspicious
KYT.
there's a helmet company involved based on the T-shirt.
Yeah, KYT Americas, I definitely need to thank them. And
Awesome.
And we should mention Tony Sharpless because really this whole thing was her brainchild and she pushed it through with the CMA and the FIM and that's why I'm involved. So
absolutely. Yeah, it's a great show. Guys, thanks for hanging out with us. Appreciate it. We're looking
Thank you
forward to sitting around with you as we roam our way through this massive...
and listen to the Harley sound system next door.
It's the best part of this whole thing. I think that's why people tuned in right now. But awesome. Thank you guys, and we'll catch up with you soon, okay?
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, we're joined now by Tony Sharpless here at the Canadian Motorcycle and Powersports Show, as we are surrounded, as we have been all day, by all of the wonderful branding, Moto Mini and Mini SBK, Supersonic Road Race School. Thank you for letting us invade your space throughout the entire day to be able to do the show, because we needed somewhere to be able to have conversations, and you've become our central hub unintentionally, so thank you.
Well, I'm happy to have you guys. You've been doing a great job, and see you've had some of our new and upcoming talent on your podcast, so happy to do it.
Yeah, Jaeger was fantastic, and Cole Alexander, he just said to us as we finished up chatting with him that he wished that you were around at the shows earlier, because he's like, I got into it late. I was 15 years old.
Earlier, he means years ago.
Right? Yeah. But it's exciting for you, everything that's going on. I just, maybe it's because I'm a dad of a 5-year-old, but seeing all of the kids flock to your booth here at the show is pretty sweet. How much are you enjoying this?
You know, you never know where my goal is to put the Canadian flag on the MotoGP podium one day, and you never know which kid it's going to be and if they're even born yet. So, but we're laying the foundation, and I just love the enthusiasm that all of the families, it takes a whole team to get the kid to the track, and the hard work that the kids have to put in to get to the international level, and so it takes a village, and it's great to have the big community here at the show and everybody enjoying connecting, and it's a really good feeling to see that we've got the momentum going.
So when we head off to Europe with the Canadian team to represent Canada, you're our team manager, and you have the riders and their families, and people like me that you've got to look after. Does it ever seem like too much to try and keep track of that many moving parts and then try and place them in context of the 20 other countries that are racing?
It's a lot of work when I'm at home at the computer, putting all of the pieces together. But when I have people like yourself, Colin, that come out to help and part of the team, and bring in all the expertise and knowledge that everybody's got on the team, and everybody's bringing something different. I could really just kind of step back, and everybody does their thing. They know what it needs to, push it to the next level, and everybody seems to have the same passion and the same drive. So really, after we get all those pieces together at the office stage, when we get to the track, it's really great to just kind of sit back and everybody do their thing.
What's the most rewarding part for you about going over to Europe? Like what part of that experience? Is it seeing the maple leaf on the flag amongst everybody else on the grid? Is the paddock experience? Is it seeing the kids come to life because they're surrounded by all of these influences? Like, I wonder what you just kind of sit back and go, wow, we're really doing this.
Yeah, it is a wow moment. I get goosebumps, and I just I got to wear my sunglasses because I'm just emotional mush most of the week. And even when it's, raining out or something, how come you're still wearing your sunglasses? But it's
Big
emotional.
fan of the Blues Brothers.
Yeah. It's a moving experience for me because I see the talent that these kids are bringing to the track, and I know how much work it is behind the scenes and how much dedication the families have that have poured into getting the kids there. Not just, the skill level is unbelievable. And to watch the kids at such a young age to have the racecraft and the skill, it just blows me away. I get goosebumps, and I'm just an emotional bag of mush all week.
I love it. Well, we'll let you get out of here and go back to doing what you love, which is talking to the kids and the families. Thank you, Tony, for joining us.
Great. Thanks a lot, Marshall, and thanks, Colin.
We are very excited to be joined right now by Cole Alexander, who I've been promising we were going to get him on the podcast for some time. So it's great to actually have you here. You also patiently waited while Colin and I were just yammering for like a solid hour about track conditions at Phillip Island and is it going to rain today and all this. So thank you for being patient with us. But we appreciate it. What's going on with you?
Just happy to be here.
Yeah?
Here at the show talking bikes and seeing some friends. Yeah, just having fun.
You had a monster year last year.
I did.
For people that do not know the long list of accomplishments, which ones would you like to highlight?
What stands out? What are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of the championships, personally.
Yeah.
Both the amateur championships. It's kind of it definitely wasn't the goal going into the season, but that's for sure.
What was the goal?
There's the humble brag.
That's the, I don't know. There wasn't really much of a goal. Coming into the season, I had 3 days under my belt on a super sport bike and just kind of showed up at Shannonville, and, everything started to happen pretty fast. And next thing you know, we're going both sides of the country, and we ended up getting the championship. So it's probably the big star for me.
And at what point did you think, I can do this, right? Because, it's interesting what you're saying. A lot of people start off a championship season not necessarily thinking that's possible. And what we often see is partway through the year, 2 or 3 people have separated themselves, and suddenly wherever we go, they're the guys at the front, right? Because you've got the confidence now. When did you start thinking, maybe I can win a number 1 here?
Well, coming into 2025 at the SOAR practice weekend, it was my first kind of weekend on the 750, and I started feeling pretty good on it, and I was like, we can go to Shannonville. We'll see how that goes.
Is Grand Bend home for you?
Grand Bend is
okay.
home, yeah. I race the SOAR Regional Series, so kind of got comfortable on the bike there, felt pretty good, and then went to Shannonville, and I qualified second, I think, in Super Sport. And so I'm like, okay, maybe I can get a podium here. This is good. And then I go out and I won both the Saturday races.
Yep.
I did kind of the sweep, and then on Sunday I won in Super Sport. I hit a false neutral in the Superbike race, and I got second. Didn't get the full 4-for-4, but it was kind of then where I was like, I think I can show up to these races and give Zion a good run for his money, and so I just kind of on the drive home after that weekend, I told my dad, this is kind of once in a lifetime. I want to go. I'm never going to lead a national championship again. Well, I hope to, but
right.
It's
you don't know you're going to lead another
exactly,
one.
Yeah. I can't pass this up, and he kind of said, I'll support you. It's
amazing.
It's what you got to do, and so pretty much from then on, I called the boss. I said, it's I explained what was going on, and he gave me the okay, and off we went to Nova Scotia, and I guess the rest is history, pretty much.
And did you know about Shuby and what that would be like?
I rode Shuby in 2024 on the R3, but again on a 300. I knew what way the track went. That's about it. It's Shuby's definitely a different animal on a 750, that's for sure, especially on the Sunday or Saturday morning there.
Master of understatement here.
It was raining pretty hard, and that was my first time on a super sport bike in the rain.
It seemed like something to look forward to.
A bomb went off, and then there was an animal that ran across the track. And
well, there was that too, actually. Yeah, there was a deer.
Yep.
Lost my ID in a flash flood. Which it should be might happen.
Yeah, you never know there. So. Shuby was a fun weekend, actually. I really enjoyed it.
And did you make friends with the place?
I did, actually, yeah. To an extent. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your favorite part in the part that you found was like, oh, man, I don't know if I can get a grasp on this?
Oh, man. The favorite part was probably coming out of turn 3 there. You go up the hill and then hit turn 3.
Drop down, yeah.
Going across that kind of like back little side straight there, you click 4th, and then you go over that hill and the front wheel's just up, the back wheel's sliding out. It's just so much fun just trying to get it kind of under control there.
So
and
you
then,
know the short straight where you climb the hill from the hairpin to 3 that you're talking about. When they built the track, they ran out of money when they hadn't completed that, and they didn't build a road bed. They just paved it, which is
really?
why that part of the track used to be by far the worst part of the track.
Yeah, it used to be pretty rough.
Yeah.
I have heard about that. Yeah. It was pretty cool, actually, in 2024, racing Gary there. He's
well, he knows.
Yeah, he ran like the first ever laps.
See, that's
there.
good. If you rode with him, then you probably picked up some little bits and pieces.
Yeah. Shuby's one of those tracks you really want to get behind the locals. And 2024, I got behind Bailey and Colin there, or Gary there.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was they taught me a lot. So
Nobody better to follow around there than Gary, right?
No.
Oh.
Yeah, he's I don't know how long he's been riding that track.
Forever.
50 years, wasn't it?
I've seen pictures of the very first weekend there, Formula Atlantic cars, Villeneuve and everybody, and they had a few bikes go out just right around. They hadn't had a bike race yet, and he was one of the guys who went out and just rode around a bit to show motorcycles on the track.
Wow.
Well, hi to fellow Canadian Superbike podcast guest Gary McKinnon, because he was on the show last year. So
nice.
This year, going into this year, what are your plans? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I guess I haven't really made an official announcement, but 2026 we're going to be Pro Super Sport. Going to be making the jump up. I was looking at options. Pro Super Sport just kind of made the most sense for me, and kind of there's a lot more to just the racing. You know, I'm trying to balance a full-on apprenticeship, doing a mobile crane apprenticeship. So for me and kind of my future, Pro Super Sport made the most sense. Kind of stay here in Canada and go work through the week and then race on the weekends. So yeah, it's
You're setting a bad example by acting like a grown-up.
I know, I don't like it.
You're supposed to move to Mexico right now, I think, and maximize your talent. No,
I wish.
It's exciting, though, to have you still in the fold for us, because since I've been around with Colin, we're constantly saying, man, Superbike is great for the reasons that Superbike is great at the pro level. But Supersport is just, and we saw it at Phillip Island in the first races yesterday as well, it's just chaos, because there's a ridiculous amount of talent, because there's some people dropping from Superbike, there's some people coming up, there's people on all sorts of different manufacturers and machinery and people and their strengths and their weaknesses, and most tracks seem to get the best in terms of entertainment value, race quality out of a Supersport bike, it seems like. So to have you in that fray is super exciting for us as the idiots who get to call the races.
Yeah,
well, and the level playing field means that it's a place where you have a better chance of making an impression sooner. And, no offense, you'd be measuring yourself against Ben Young and Superbike. Ben Young with a fantastic team and a Honda as a sponsor. In Supersport, Collins had a couple of different rides, and obviously Collins is a talent at the same level, in my opinion, as Ben Young, but the equipment isn't as difficult to get to that level, right?
Yeah. Is there anybody that you have spoken to about deciding what you want to ride, or what program you're going to be joining in terms of going, hey, I need some advice on what this is going to be like, or should I be riding on this?
Is there someone you listen to?
Yeah.
There's definitely a few people I listen to. Ben is definitely one of them.
What does he know?
Yeah, I've gotten actually fairly close to Ben in the last few years. My cottage is actually up in Thornbury, like just down the road from his house. Yep. So we've got Scottish roots, and
a lot of that going around.
yeah. So we've got Ben's kind of taking me under his wing a little bit. So whatever Ben says, I'm always kind of listening, and yeah. So I definitely listen to Ben.
It's nice too, because Ben is one of those guys who isn't just. I always think about this in terms of people like Magic Johnson becoming the Lakers coach for like a week. It's like, Magic's really good at basketball, but don't ask Magic anything about basketball, because he's not going to tell you anything. Ben is one of those people who can also tell you about not just the bike, the platform, the way it feels, this and that. He can ride it, but he can also describe it, right? And he can kind of bring it to life for you without you having to be on it.
Yeah.
Well, and another weird thing too, that he's a secure guy. He's he's a grown up. He's confident, and I think that he is not worried that what you tell him is going to be the thing that lets you beat him. He knows that you're going to have to figure out all that in your own way, right? And I think he has been helpful to some people who are at times threats to him, because he understands that it's a very complicated thing, and it's all very unlikely you're going to provide that one bit of information that solves all of racing's mysteries. It's just not a realistic expectation. Ben is very practical about the realities of racing.
Hearing you say that reminds me of the Race 1 Super Sport of last season, where I remember talking to Seb Tremblay afterwards about like being on the GSXR 750.
Another sensible guy.
Right? But talking to Seb about it, and he's like, I got something for Ben. I just got to figure it out. Because he's like, I understand where he's at. And obviously Race 2 was, the popped, was a rad pipe, I believe, that Ben had, right? At the hairpin. But so have you decided? I see Alexander Racing. Are we locking in what we're doing, or?
I think we're pretty much same program as last year on the 750. There, it's a pretty good bike. Hoping to get a little bit more of a setup on it.
Yep.
Last year, I literally didn't turn one clicker at all. I showed up. It used to be Andrew Cooney's bike, actually. Famously, Andrew sent that bike for a bit of a fly there in Shannonville in 2024, and.
On the other hand, I was very good friends with his dad, who's a very good builder. So it probably has good bones, as they say.
Yeah, Daryl definitely.
If they're not bent bones.
Yeah, Daryl built a pretty good bike there, so that's what I'll be racing next year, and yeah, hopefully I can get a bit more of a setup on it.
Do you have someone who's going to help you a little bit?
I do. Yeah, we've been talking with Scott Cartier and Willie a little bit last year there. So.
And what do they know about GSXRs?
Beats me. Apparently they're pretty smart at what they do though. So yeah, I'm pretty excited. I'm hoping to have them on board, and hopefully they can kind of give me a nice package, and hopefully I can.
Well, it's nice to be on a bike that theoretically could run at the front, right?
Yeah. Well, Torin has pretty much proved that it's what it's capable of, and Tommy as well, and all the kind of big boys. So yeah, it's really just up to me now.
Yeah. And are you planning on doing Sora as well, mixing that with the Nationals?
Yeah.
So you're probably happy we're going to Grand Bend, right?
Oh, I'm very happy. Yeah. Grand Bend's my home track.
We're very happy too, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, I've turned lots and lots of laps at Grand Bend, so pretty happy to be going back.
Well, which track? Alien track? I mean,
all of them. Just about everything you can
Upside
imagine.
down, backwards alien. Yeah. So lots of speculation about Grand Bend from the outside. Who is the fastest guy at Grand Bend?
Well, this past year, David McKay kind of proved that he was the fast guy. I got the pleasure to race with him. Well, I didn't really race with him. I was in the same class as him, and after about a lap, he had the whole straightaway. So.
And do you race Pletch at all?
I'm in the same class. I didn't get
Sorry, I'm not trying to put you on the spot there.
Yeah, I was in the same class as kind of all those big boys, Zoltan, Pletch, Nickerson, yeah. And they're a good carrot, but never got to battle it out with them yet. So.
Interesting. Well, it's exciting that your program's coming together and you have a pretty clear idea of what 2026 is going to look like. But, without getting too far ahead of ourselves, what is you stumble into this thing last year. What do you have visions of 2 years from now, 5 years from now, or are you very much the type of person where it's like, let me just live in the next 3 weeks and we'll figure it out from there?
I'm very kind of live in the moment. Obviously I know where I want to be in 2 to 5 years. I'd like to be kind of up at the front of the Superbike class, but I don't know. I like the future, but you can't get there unless you kind of live in the present.
There's a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it's not go straight to the top of the ladder. You kind of got to climb your way up. So. Yeah.
So, I want to ask you about an oddball, very specific situation. So, the other Toronto Motorcycle Show is the one in January out at the International Centre, and Tony was allowed to operate a race there for adults, not for kids. And they were riding the Honda 50, which is a bike a lot of people have raced in a lot of different situations, including on concrete at a bike show. And we had several races each day, and interesting people would show up as guests. Jordan Zook being maybe the most interesting, and also surprising to a lot of people that Jordan Zook is willing to ride that hard on a concrete track on a Honda 50, but he would. But you joined into that party and were in the middle of some super aggressive racing.
Yeah, that was...
Did you know that was going to go? I mean, that was a little scary at times.
Well, I just kind of showed up on the Saturday there, and I was talking to Cam Walker, and he was racing, and
doing well.
Yeah, he was doing quite well, and he kind of asked if I had my suit, and I said I didn't, and he said, well, here you go. And he said Jordan and Tommy like to get pretty aggressive. So I'm like, I like aggressive racing. It can't be that bad. And so, yeah, I went out, and I didn't think I'd be racing Jordan Zook and Tommy there, but, it was a lot of fun. So
That's awesome. Well, Tony's given me the wrap it up sign, so if you got one more question, Colin, then this is your last call.
No, I just wanted to know if he had fun with the minis.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean,
That's
it was
awesome.
fantastic to watch.
I guess my last one would just be your. A lot of people understand where you're at right now, but what's like your day one origin story in bikes? Like, like where does this passion come from?
Pretty much as soon as I was born.
Yeah.
Like, as far back as I can remember, I've always kind of been around bikes and always grew up around them. I was like 3 years old. My dad bought a CBR 1000 in Pennsylvania, so kind of loaded up the family. Off to Pennsylvania we went, and yeah, I have a
How
little...
was the geometry at 3 years old on a CBR 1000?
It was pretty stretched out. Yeah, I'll be honest. It was pretty stretched out, but yeah, I've always just kind of grew up around bikes. I rode dirt bikes growing up, and then I never really knew how to get into road racing stuff. You know, Tony wasn't really at the shows then, and which is, you know, I'm pretty happy that she is now.
Yep.
Because, you know, you see all the kids here now, like,
That's awesome.
it shows them that you can get into this, and, you know, I never really had that, so I didn't start until I was 15. So, yeah, I kind of got into the road stuff at 15, and then raced the regionals, and just kind of kept working my way up, and here we are.
Here we are. Well, that's awesome. I'm looking forward to chatting with you when we're at the track coming up this season, and and wish you all the best in the preseason. Stay healthy.
Rookie pro to watch.
Yeah, exactly. Looking forward to it. That is Cole Alexander. Again, thank you to Tony Sharpless for giving us the opportunity to use this as the backdrop, and a wonderful program. As you say, we got lots of little kids that are sitting over here on the Supersonic Road Race School bikes as well, and so we're looking forward to catching up with Cole later on. Follow us along on Instagram. It is at Canadian Superbike Podcast if you'd like to find us right there. That's where Cole and I have been talking about, so trying to figure out how we're going to get them down here. But and that's going to do it for now. Thanks, everybody, for listening.